You're listening to the K-State Radio Network and Agriculture Today. We're for no lack of subjects to take on concerning the grain markets this week, as Mike Side in studio with us is grain market economist Dan O'Brien of K-State Research and Extension. We have a USDA World Agricultural Supply and Demand Estimate report for the month, which was out yesterday, Dan. We've some comments from you a little later on grain marketing opportunities you've been discussing with producers at meetings this week. But the headline grabber this week, the salvo taken by the grain sorghum market. Sorghum, to put it this way, became a pawn in the trade dispute between China and the U.S. over the weekend, and boy, did that ever resonate in the trade.
Yes, it resonated in the trade and also in the grain sorghum meetings we were having this week.
I bet.
So I guess the reality of the situation is that here as we were looking at grain basis levels in Topeka of 60 over, Concordia at 15 over, Salina at 25 to 30 over, and similar in Wellington, Hutchinson at 3 to 5 over the March contract as of Wednesday, January the 31st. February the 6th, after these announcements had been made, we'd seen the Topeka, Concordia, Salina basis bids drop to 55 under. The Hutchinson bids from even money to 27 under the March, and again Wellington, Arkansas City, and Great Bend all at 30 under. So
60 to 90 cent swings, something like that.
Even more than that. Yeah. The Topeka swing, again, and I think the Topeka bid was the flagship number in the state, over $1.10 or so, or more. Lots of questions as to the reason for this. And really, I think the reasons are probably fairly well known, i.e. retribution on the part of China to some other trade moves on the part of the U.S. administration. And this is the rough and tumble and the back and forth of how you negotiate when you have hard trade issues like this. Still, that in that move, then the optimism, trust that those export contacts, those opportunities would be available back in the future fell off dramatically. It is interesting that in one location that we were in for those meetings in Hutchinson on Wednesday, that they hadn't fallen in the elevators in town by as far as Topeka, Concordia, and Salina had been in the same situation over in Junction City, as we had some meetings earlier yesterday on that. Again, still 8 over or so. So here you have some elevators completely vacating the market and deciding to drop their bids precipitously. Others, not as high a bid, but didn't drop as far. So on the part of those that I would guesstimate, haven't talked with them, those that didn't drop quite as far either have contracts that they have to still fill, or they're not as pessimistic that this thing will last long term or not.
When you see a drop like this, though, Dan, what's typically the normal recovery from such a plunge in the market, if a recovery at all?
Well, that is a scandalously good question. But there's some talk in the market with regard to, that this move on the part of the Chinese government may have happened during a time when they're having holidays, et cetera, not as much business going on. Really, if that's true, then my question would be what will they do once business starts back up? Mm-hmm. It is interesting that the reported prices for grain sorghum going into their ports, paid by their users, their feed users, less than half, as I understand it, of the prices that those same people pay for corn through domestic sources, et cetera. So the people that are suffering, yes, we're suffering on the sales side from lack of opportunity. People that are suffering on the other side are the Chinese feed producers, who are now going to have to pay up more than double for their feed supplies. So there are political ramifications in their own country for what they've done. Now, maybe they do or don't care about that. Not sure. So here you have this profitable opportunity sitting there that the Chinese government decided to put upon the market. And now, as is so often a happening or occurrence in trade disputes and trade protection issues, the people that suffer are the domestic users.
The story to be continued on how well, if at all, the grain sorghum complex can recover from that severe blow of this past weekend into the week. Now, the USDA did lend some new numbers in the form of that World Agricultural Supply and Demand Estimate report yesterday morning. It lowered its soybean export outlook but boosted its corn export forecast. Those were a couple of the highlights there.
I think the number that I perceived the market was looking at had to do with Brazilian and Argentine production. We've had concerns with regard to how dry weather conditions in Argentina in particular and the southern part of Brazil may impact their corn production, if not their soybean production. And you saw some movement that did happen and another surprising move or change that did not happen. We did see the USDA drop its Argentine corn production figure down to 39 million metric tons from 42 in the January report, or the soybean number from 56 down to 52, both those expected. And if moisture doesn't come, probably it could be more to come. And this is a big deal affecting the availability of exports. On the soybean side, Brazilian soybean numbers raised from 110 to 112 million metric tons. The number that didn't change, that's kind of a surprise to me, is that the USDA left the corn number unchanged for Brazil. Internally, some of their own domestic market-watching groups, exchanges, etc., have already dropped the Brazilian number. So that the USDA did not drop that number has ramifications. So, and maybe they feel it's too early, et cetera. Don't know. You do wonder also about market news that we've heard relative to how the delayed plantings of soybeans will affect the possibility of record large crop or a larger crop for second planting corn down in Brazil. So there are some moving parts to this. And we did see the USDA come in and make that adjustment higher for U.S. corn exports. The U.S. ending stocks figure for corn was adjusted lower. That's an important deal. It was 2.477 billion bushels, now down to 2.352 billion bushels, and that's all increased exports for corn. So that's a positive thing. And Eric, you and I have been talking that the one weak part in the demand and usage side for corn was the exports. Well, here, now along with strong domestic use for feed, for ethanol plants, for wet corn milling, now we're showing strength in demand for exports as well. So all for the good. And to the degree we whittle down the beginning stocks figure for the 2018 crop, and again, if this keeps happening, do we get down to 2.2, 2.1, something like that, then it just makes the market more reactive for 2018 new crop prices and circling back for what's left would be left of for old crop usage if we keep moving that ending stocks 2017-18 number down. It bodes well for the responsiveness of the market to any weather issues of the corn market for any weather issues heading off into the summer months of 2018.
Interestingly, yesterday in the futures, after the report was released, corn responded to the upside, as you might anticipate, given those signals from the report. Soybeans rallied as well, which
sure
runs counter to what the report might have suggested.
Yeah, need to look at all the details and what happened in terms of export sales and a number of other things. I would say that soybean projected ending stocks for 2017-18 were raised basically 60 million bushels from 470 to 530. Again, we've had some producer meetings here of late in the area, in the Riley County area, Leonardville and Randolph. And one astute ag producer asked me, well, when are these acreage reports coming up anyway? Well, I said there is a prospective plantings report, and I believe it's at the end of March. There's an acreage report at the end of June. You know, when you see these moves like this and see the growing stocks figure for soybeans and look at our long-term expectation that we're going to plant a lot of soybean acres this year. And again, Inform Us, some others have come out and kind of mitigated that a little bit. But for the last several months, we've been thinking, gosh, we're going to plant lots of beans. And when you look at growing stocks numbers for beans and the lowering stocks numbers for corn, you wonder how farmers will vote with their planters with regard to their expectation for these crops heading off into 2018 crop.
So the rope may tug the other direction a tad.
Well, we're
to be determined again.
As the economists like to say, when they don't know the exact answer, we're in a dynamic situation. So,
and very good. Lastly, you did visit with producers at these meetings this past week, have been for the last couple of weeks on the road doing so, about grain marketing opportunities. And with the recent action we've seen, has anything popped off the page that looks like a good chance to price grain at this point?
Well, I think that the seasonal patterns that we have been seeing with regard to Prices tending to hold up pretty well for corn through May, June, for soybeans through May, June as well, and actually for wheat through March are still there in place. And the drier conditions are supporting the wheat market. And we've had some much better wheat pricing opportunities that have emerged here of late as the market has moved higher. So we're talking pretty seriously about forward contracting new crop wheat and wondering, do we add calls on top of that? That was thought-provoking. It was also surprising how much people mentioned that they still had unsold old crop, and that was an issue.
Dan, thank you for stopping over on your way back to Colby, and we'll talk again next week.
Thanks, Eric. Take care.
He joins us here each Friday to visit about the grain market trends, does K-State Research and Extension grain market economist Dan O'Brien. We'll return shortly on This Agriculture Today.
While many people know hunger is an issue in developing countries, it is also a problem in our own backyards. In 2010, 1 in 7 Kansans struggled to put adequate food on the table. 2 K-State Research and Extension programs are tackling this problem. The Family Nutrition Program and Expanded Food and Nutrition Education Program reach thousands of Kansans in more than 70 counties. They learn how to eat healthy with a low budget. For more information about these programs, visit ksre.ksu.edu.
Agriculture Today is back now, and we'll talk crop irrigation, and an excellent opportunity to catch up on the latest concerning this practice in the form of the annual Central Plains Irrigation Conference and Exposition. It is scheduled for February the 20th and 21st in Colby, and one of those lead planners for this event every year is with us now, irrigation engineer Danny Rogers of K-State Research and Extension. This is put on, Danny, by the Central Plains Irrigation Association, and K-State has a big hand in assembling this, but you try to come up with a program each year that addresses what is on the minds of irrigators out there, right?
That's right. It is an association that's ag business is the backbone of the Irrigation Association, but the technical program are sponsored as it rotates between the 3 states of Kansas, Colorado, and Nebraska. It's sponsored by the extension services of those respective states, and it's a real good opportunity to allow us to bring in speakers from outside our own borders, and we reached across the country over the years to bring in those speakers that might highlight the particular topics that we want to emphasize that year that we think, that we've identified either through our advisory boards or the trade show members or whatnot that they think are the important topics to be addressed. And this is a little difference that in this program is that we do stay on the equipment side probably more than many other of the conferences. And it's not that we don't address agronomic issues and management, but we try to start from the equipment side to a degree as irrigation engineers are the backbone of the program planning. But important topics, of course, in northwest Kansas are western Kansas in general are the deficit irrigation strategies. Mm-hmm. However, if you're looking at irrigation efficiency and management efficiency, even if you're in eastern Kansas with full water capabilities and whatnot, the same technology, whether it's applied to a full irrigation management strategy or depth irrigation management pattern, have direct application. So we think it's a program, even though it's way out in Colby from someone in the Kansas River Valley, it still has parts of it that would be, I think they would find of interest. And we do emphasize a little bit on the some of the current issues this year of the conservation programs that make the news here, and that would be the Sheridan 6 Lima and some of those other water conservation activities of the area.
And in fact, that will be comprising one of the breakout sessions looking at the Lima, how it's functioned in that northwest Kansas county, Sheridan County. But this program is loaded. And what you've done, you say, Danny, which may be a departure from previous conferences, is that you've taken one day and have emphasized in that day information on subsurface drip irrigation. That would be on Tuesday. Then Wednesday, the focus is on center pivot irrigation systems.
That's correct. It's still a 2-day conference, but we do have some individuals that say, well, they can only make one or the other day, and so instead of mixing those system types, over the course of both days. We decided to concentrate them this year. And so if you're really interested in hearing about subsurface drip as a new technology, then obviously the first day, Tuesday, would be your target day. And then, of course, the center pivot is the backbone of our irrigated industry here. About 94% of our irrigated acres are center pivot irrigated. And so if you want the center pivot, obviously Wednesday is your target day. But we hope that you would be able to take in both, because all the other sessions then are repeated.
They're common to both days.
They are common to both days. And so you can then listen about pumps and controls, safety, deficit irrigation strategies. Probably one of the things that might be popular on Tuesday is the farmer panel on SDI, so that you'll hear some individual experiences on that. I think the other kind of new aspect of it also, though, is that we are on Tuesday evening, Kansas Corn is sponsoring a dinner and for the attendees, and have a farmer panel that will be talking about optimizing irrigation efforts for the long term. Of course, that's a topic that fits greatly with the mission of Central Plains Irrigation Association. Of course, our goals as K-State Research and Extension, we want to try to do things that are beneficial for the long run. And so that's a new feature of this particular year also. And our general sessions, the first day we have Conrad Weaver, who is a filmmaker who did a film that's been shown throughout the state and nation entitled Thirsty Land. It actually started filming in Kansas and addressing some of our issues associated with the Ogallala, and it ended up spending also some time in California. When he was filming, they were at the peak of their drought issues out there, just as ours were kind of waning, and so he picked up some more from out that way. So it has a wide range of stuff from irrigation issues clear into domestic water use issues as people are affected, and it's a very good basis to start some discussions about what to do for the long run. That's really a
30,000-foot view session there, isn't it?
Right. And he'll be around, so he's an interesting guy to talk with. And on the second day, our general session, Jordan Bell, who is a extension agronomist from Texas A&M, talking about the potential of the new green revolution. I often encounter in the public groups I talk with, let's just say that there's a lot of misunderstanding about modern agriculture. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of misunderstanding. And I think if anyone, if they investigate long enough, that they will find that they really don't want us to abandon many of the scientifically based advancements that have occurred annually, daily, all the time.
Irrigation and beyond.
So I was trying to find a speaker that would address this issue from a scientific basis, but it would be a review of what kind of advancements we've seen, how they address the issues of production agriculture today, and how they will help us into the future. I was trying to get a speaker in front of our ag producers that would help them be able to be better representatives of what they are doing on a year-in, year-out basis, because they have done a phenomenal job in improving productivity, and at the same time, it's not just improving productivity. You still have to make a bottom line. And so to do that both together in light of declining resources and other market issues and all the different things they have to deal with, I think a talk like this will be a good refreshing view for them to hear and also then prepare themselves to address whatever might come up from the general public.
Yeah. The more voices, the better in support of our great advances in production agriculture. It's no time, as you say, Danny, to regress on any of that. So that'll be an interesting presentation from Jordan Bell, Texas A&M University. The trade show is on hand. That's the exposition part of this entire event, so we don't want to overlook it either.
Oh, yes, thank you. Those trade show guys, like I said, they're the backbone of the meeting. They underwrite the cost. And then you have, as someone attending the program, will have access to them to talk to them about their latest equipment, technology, services, whatever else they might choose to display. And we usually have a really good wide range of trade show folks there. Like I said, maybe a little heavier emphasis on equipment, but most everyone is equipment and service oriented, so you can see the wide range of products and services that are available. And excellent time to have a lot of one-on-one time with those individuals on products that you might find potentially useful in your operation.
And again, expertise from the 3 supporting land-grant universities, K-State, University of Nebraska, Colorado State University. All those folks will be on hand during the technical sessions to take up all sorts of issues regarding those topics of those sessions. So it is a full agenda.
Yeah, and I would like to, also, like I said, we bring in people. Obviously, we have Texas A&M, several speakers from Texas, and we also use the USDA ARS folks. I think the ones all this time are coming from Texas, but we have brought them in from other resources centers throughout the country. And so it's probably people that you normally wouldn't be able to access in a regular day-to-day basis, I guess.
Irrigators, the best thing to do is get a look at this chock-full agenda, an excellent program that's been put together once again for February the 20th and 21st in Colby. And as far as registering, Danny, what's the procedure?
Yeah, just, you can probably Google up, the easiest way is Google up Central Plains Irrigation Conference. It will give you a contact for the executive director, Donna Lamb, and you can register online and be ready to go for the meeting on, like I said, on Tuesday, February 20th, Colby.
The registration fee, $90 for one day, $115 for both days, and for those who are needing CEUs for their crop advisor status, they can also participate.
Yeah, they can also register. We've had the meeting all pre-approved, so it will qualify for those credits. And so it's a easy way to get the latest information and get your license coverage done, completed.
Very well. It's coming up on Tuesday and Wednesday, 20th and 21st of February. Not too long from now at all, week after next, in Colby at the City Limits Convention Center there, the 2018 Central Plains Irrigation Conference and Exposition. As Danny says, the easiest way to register is to search for the Central Plains Irrigation Conference or Central Plains Irrigation Association. Either way, that'll take you right to the information on reserving your spot at this exceptional conference. Congratulations, Danny, for putting this together once again.
Thank you, Eric. I appreciate the opportunity to talk about it.
And thank you for coming over. That's irrigation engineer with K-State Research and Extension, Danny Rogers. And you're listening to Agriculture Today.
Have you ever thought about where your food comes from? If you're thinking the grocery store, think again. Facts show that the American farmer feeds more than 129 people.
They are continually increasing and improving their operations. A wide variety of crops and livestock are grown in Kansas as well as the United States, providing food to your dinner plate.
Next time you see a farmer or rancher, thank them. For more information, contact K-State Research and Extension.
Concluding this Agriculture Today now, we turn to the latest on the Kansas agricultural weather beat, and once more alongside is Research and Extension climatologist at K-State, Mary Knapp. Mary, the month of February has opened up much as the month of January was around the better part of the state, and that is quite dry.
Right. There was an exception. The West Central Division did end the week that is our drought monitoring week, which ended on Tuesday, February 6th, with wetter than normal conditions. They saw an average of 0.14 of an inch of precipitation out in that area, which is a massive hundredth of an inch more than they typically would see. So again, it isn't a huge increase, but it was enough combined with the previous wet week for some improvement in the drought conditions in northwest and west central Kansas. So
where the snows have fallen.
Where the snows have fallen. Goodland saw over 5 inches of snow out of that and almost 0.45 of an inch of liquid out of that. So again, that's an indication that it was varied. Not everybody saw as much, but it was enough to do some benefits to that area. Unfortunately, the rest of the state was not nearly so blessed with the amount of moisture in it. The southern divisions in particular were very, very shortchanged. Southwestern Kansas averaged 0. There were some places that did see some light amounts, but again, very much less than what they would typically see. South Central averaged nothing, and by average nothing, I don't think there was a single report of any precipitation.
It means nothing.
Yeah, there was nobody had anything in the South Central. Southeast wasn't much better. They averaged 0.02 of an inch, but southeastern Kansas is supposed to see a lot more than that. So they had the biggest departure from the normal. They were 0.31 of an inch below what they should have seen for the week. So again, not surprising, there was expansion in the extreme drought into the South Central and creeping into the central parts of the state, and more expansion of the severe drought.
The longer this goes on, the further that drought expands, the more difficult it's going to be for those areas in southern Kansas in particular to get caught back up this spring.
Well, actually, not quite so bad as you might expect, and that would be because as we move into March and April, the amount of moisture we would normally expect is also larger. Mm-hmm. So beneficial system moving through could erase those deficits fairly quickly. I mean, you look at a deficit of a week of 0.31 of an inch, a nice soaking rain could make that up fairly quickly. Unfortunately, there's not anything in the cards that look like that pattern is going to shift anytime soon. Certainly, February's not looking promising. We'll have to see how March plays out. March is really when we start beginning our wet season. So we would like a wet start to the month, but at this time the signals are still not clear as to what way that pattern might go.
Well, normal moisture would be welcome at this point when we get into the springtime.
Right. Certainly a normal spring moisture, we could see a turnaround very, very quickly. The question is, will we see normal moisture as we go into March? With a La Nina pattern still in play, that tends to keep us in that dry pattern. And again, the fact that there's not any signs of systems coming across Southern California, nothing coming out of the Four Corners. Most of the moisture in Texas is in the eastern edges of it, and that's being shunted up into the Ohio River Valley, leaving us on the dry edge.
And this week, Mary, was an unfortunate reminder that we've a ways to go before we escape the clutches of winter. It was uncommonly cold this week for most of the state.
Right. Everybody saw temperatures down into the single digits. The north central and northeast saw sub-zero readings. Marysville in Marshall County had the coldest reading. They got down to -10. So again, a reminder that we can have some really cold weather when it comes to February. It looks like the next couple of days are going to be on that very cold side. We may see a little bit of moisture squeezed out of the system. What we'll be watching is that it looks like there will be a chance for some freezing rain, a freezing drizzle in southeast Kansas. And with that, you don't need very much of it to be a dangerous situation. It doesn't look like we're going to have any huge quantities of precipitation out of it, so it doesn't look like a major icing event. But again, it doesn't take much to cause a lot of problems.
So be heads up for that in the southeast. And the week ahead, basically the same pattern, maybe not the sharp coldness we saw earlier this week, but nonetheless chilly.
It looks like that we'll be seeing highs in the mid-40s and lows in the 20s. Seasonal for this time of the year, but certainly not any indication of an early arrival of spring. We'll look and see whether or not there's going to be another round of moisture coming towards the end of the week. But again, at this time, nothing very massive in the wings yet to arrive. There's not any indication that we'll see a break in the zonal flow pattern where the storms are going to our north. The Dakotas and Nebraska are getting the moisture. The Gulf moisture is still being shunted to our east, and we're left waiting for a change in pattern.
So let's look for that, but it may be weeks yet, and at least the days are getting longer if we're looking for any kind of a positive here.
Right. And the two positives, if you look at it, the days are getting longer, but we are still keeping those temperatures cool enough that we're not having any early break in dormancy for our winter planted crops. And given the lack of moisture for those crops to work with, a delay till we get into a wetter pattern would certainly be welcome.
Well, Mary, thank you for coming over, and enjoy your weekend.
Thanks, Eric.
She's Mike's Side with us each Friday to get into the Kansas agricultural weather outlook. Mary Knapp is a research and extension climatologist at K-State, and that is our time for today. Looking ahead to Monday's broadcast, we'll turn to a livestock economist out of Iowa State University for the weekly cattle market segment. Lee Schultz will be along with us. And we plan to share more information that was passed along at the K-State Swine Profitability Conference earlier this week in Manhattan. All that and more coming up here on Monday. Please be back with us then. Meantime, enjoy your weekend as well. Eric Atkinson here. This has been Agriculture Today over the K-State Radio Network.